December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Commander Mitsu Fukaida circled his bomber above the burning American fleet. 8 battleships were sinking or damaged. Hundreds of planes destroyed on the ground. Thousands of Americans died. He looked down at the smoke rising into the Hawaiian sky and smiled. Japan had just crippled the American Pacific Fleet in 2 hours. The war was won before it really started. Fukaida had planned this attack for months. He'd studied American defenses. He knew their strength. And he knew Japan's superiority. Japanese pilots trained for years. American pilots trained for months. Japanese torpedoes ran true. American torpedoes were garbage. The Zero fighter could outfly anything America had. Japan's battleships were the biggest in the world. Most importantly, Japan had the warrior spirit. Bushido. Americans were soft. They loved comfort. They wouldn't fight a long war. Hit them hard enough, fast enough, and they'd negotiate peace. That was the plan. Fukaida radioed back to his carriers. Tora, Tora, Tora. Complete surprise achieved. But as Fukaida flew back to his carrier that morning, he made one critical observation. He reported it to his superiors. They ignored it. 3 American aircraft carriers weren't in port. Enterprise, Lexington, and Saratoga were somewhere at sea. Untouched. That little detail would haunt Japan for the next 4 years. Here's the thing. This story gets even more insane. If you're enjoying this, smash that subscribe button because we tell stories like this every single week. You won't regret it. What Japan didn't understand was simple. They thought wars were won by warriors. America knew wars were won by factories. In 1941, Japan's entire economy produced 5 million tons of steel. America produced 75 million tons. Japan built 6 aircraft carriers during the entire war. America built 141. Japan thought spirit could beat production. They were catastrophically wrong. This is the story of how Japan bet everything on a strategy that was doomed from day one. Japan's plan seemed logical at first. They'd studied history. Russia lost to Japan in 1905. Why? Russia fought far from home. Supply lines broke down. The Russian people got tired of war. Japan figured America would be the same. Hit the Pacific Fleet hard. Grab the Philippines, Wake Island, Guam, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies. Build a defensive perimeter across the Pacific. Then dare America to come take it back. Island by island. Across thousands of miles of ocean. It would cost millions of American lives. Americans would see the casualties on newsreels. They'd demand peace. Japan would keep China. Keep the oil fields. Keep their empire. Game over. Admiral Yamamoto saw the problem. He'd studied at Harvard. He'd seen American factories. He'd driven across the country. He told his superiors, "I can run wild for 6 months. Maybe a year. After that, I guarantee nothing." They didn't listen. They thought Yamamoto was too westernized, too cautious. Japan had beaten China. Japan had beaten Russia. Divine wind would protect the homeland. The warrior spirit would prevail. So Japan rolled the dice. Pearl Harbor was just the opening move. In 6 months, Japan conquered everything. The Philippines fell. Singapore fell. The Dutch East Indies fell. Burma fell. Japan controlled the Pacific. Their defensive perimeter stretched from Alaska to Australia. Millions of people under Japanese rule. And America seemed helpless to stop it. But something was happening back in America. Something Japan didn't expect. Americans got angry. Not tired. Not scared. Angry. Remember, most Americans in 1941 wanted to stay out of the war. Pearl Harbor changed that overnight. Young men lined up at recruiting stations. Factories that made cars started making tanks. Factories that made refrigerators started making planes. Women went to work building ships. America didn't negotiate. America got to work. The numbers tell the story. In 1941, Japan built 1,080 planes. America built 19,433. In 1942, Japan built 8,861 planes. America built 47,836. In 1943, Japan built 16,693 planes. America built 85,898. Think about that. In 1943 alone, America built 5 times more planes than Japan. And the gap kept growing. It wasn't just quantity. American planes got better, faster, tougher, more powerful. The P-38 Lightning could fly higher and faster than the Zero. The F-6F Hellcat was built specifically to kill Zeros. It did. American pilots called it the Grumman meat grinder. In 1944, Hellcats shot down over 2,500 Japanese planes. Japan couldn't replace them. Japan couldn't replace the pilots. Ships told the same story. Japan started the war with 10 aircraft carriers. By 1945, Japan had built 17 total. America started with 7 carriers. By 1945, America had built 141 carriers. Not a typo. 141 Essex-class fleet carriers. Independence-class light carriers. Dozens of escort carriers. American shipyards launched a new carrier every month. Sometimes 2. Japan's shipyards couldn't keep up. Japan's economy couldn't support it. The first real shock came at Midway. June 1942. 6 months after Pearl Harbor. Japan sent 4 carriers to attack Midway Island. They planned to draw out the American carriers and destroy them. Finally finished, the job started at Pearl Harbor. Japanese Admiral Nagumo was confident. His pilots were the best in the world. His carriers had never lost. Then American dive bombers appeared. In 5 minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were burning. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, gone. A 4th carrier, Hiryu, sank later that day. Japan lost 248 planes. Over 3,000 men. Most importantly, Japan lost its best pilots. The veterans who'd trained for years. Who'd bombed Pearl Harbor. Who'd conquered the Pacific. You can build a new carrier in a year. You can't build a new veteran pilot in a year. Japanese sailors who survived Midway couldn't believe it. They'd thought they were invincible. One survivor wrote, "We felt like we'd been struck by lightning. How could this happen? How could the Americans move so fast? Fight so well? We were the superior force. We were supposed to win. But we didn't." And after that day, nothing was ever the same. The industrial gap crushed Japan slowly. At Guadalcanal, Japan lost 30,000 men trying to take back one island. America kept sending more troops, more ships, more supplies. Japan couldn't match it. Japanese soldiers on Guadalcanal starved. They called it Starvation Island. American supply ships came every week like clockwork. Japanese supply ships got sunk by American submarines. By the end, Japanese soldiers were eating grass and tree bark. American submarines destroyed Japan's merchant fleet. Japan's oil came from the Dutch East Indies by tanker. American subs sank the tankers. Japan's rubber came from Malaya by ship. American subs sank the ships. Japan's food came from Korea and China. American subs sank those ships too. By 1945, Japanese factories shut down from lack of raw materials. Japanese cities starved from lack of food. The home islands were cut off. A Japanese naval officer wrote in his diary in 1944, "We shot down 10 American planes. Tomorrow 20 more will appear. We sink 1 American ship. Next week 2 more arrive. Where do they come from? How many do they have? We can't win this. We can only die trying." He wasn't wrong. America built 300,000 planes during the war. Japan built 76,000. America built 88,000 tanks. Japan built 6,500. America launched 147 aircraft carriers. Japan launched 17. Here's what broke Japan's will. American bombers. B-29 Superfortresses. They flew higher than Japanese fighters could reach. They carried more bombs than any plane in history. In March 1945, 334 B-29s firebombed Tokyo. 16 square miles of the city burned. 100,000 people died in one night. More than died at Hiroshima. Japanese fighters tried to stop them. Couldn't reach them. Japanese anti-aircraft guns fired. Couldn't hit them. The B-29s came back the next week. And the next. And the next. Over 60 Japanese cities got firebombed. Japan had no answer. By August 1945, Japan's navy was gone. Japan's air force was gone. Japan's cities were burning. Millions of Japanese were starving. The Soviet Union had just declared war and invaded Manchuria. Then came Hiroshima. Then Nagasaki. The atomic bombs killed 200,000 people. But Japan wasn't ready to surrender after Hiroshima. Even after Nagasaki, Japanese military leaders wanted to keep fighting. Fight to the last man. Die with honor. The emperor had to personally order surrender. Even then, some officers tried to stop it. They wanted glorious death over shameful peace. Commander Fukaida survived the war. The man who led the Pearl Harbor attack lived to see Japan surrender. He walked through the ruins of Tokyo in September 1945. Everything was ash. His navy was at the bottom of the ocean. His air force was destroyed. His country was occupied by the Americans he thought were too soft to fight. Fukaida realized something. Japan had never understood America. Japan thought Americans loved comfort more than freedom. Turns out Americans loved freedom enough to give up comfort and crush anyone who threatened it. Japan's strategy failed because it was based on a fantasy. The fantasy that willpower beats factories. That spirit beats steel. That a small island nation could challenge the biggest industrial power on Earth. American factories produced twice what all Axis powers combined produced. Germany, Italy, and Japan together couldn't match American output. Japan alone never had a chance. America built 16 battleships during the war. Japan built 2. America built 349 destroyers. Japan built 63. America built 203 submarines. Japan built 126. In 1944 alone, America produced more tonnage of ships than Japan produced in the entire war. Every single category, every single year, Japan fell further behind. Think about this. The war lasted 3 years and 8 months. Japan lost 2.1 million military personnel. America lost 400,000. Japan's cities were ash. America's cities were untouched. Japan's economy was destroyed. America's economy had doubled. Japan bet everything on one desperate gamble. America turned war into an assembly line and buried them in steel. Thanks for watching. Next time we're covering the Battle of Leyte Gulf, when Japan sent everything they had left at the American invasion of the Philippines and it turned into the biggest naval battle in human history. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. These stories don't tell themselves and there's way more coming. See you next time.